Hi everybody, welcome to episode 13 of the Photography Explained podcast. In this episode, what are the rules of composition? Now, last week I spoke about composition and I hoped that having done a full podcast episode on it, I could say the word composition. Not a good start, but let's keep it in and keep it real. I'm your host Rick, and each week I will try to explain one photographic thing to you in plain English in less than 10 minutes without the irrelevant details. My aim is to explain things in just enough detail to help us with our photography and no more. What are the rules of composition? In this episode I'm going to tell you what the rules of composition are, and not necessarily why they're important, more what they are. I actually enjoyed producing this episode because I had to do some work and a bit of research, and I've come out with a list which is longer than any of the other lists which I've found, which is proving that I'm ad-libbing because that's on my script for it in a little while. I will caveat this episode by saying that rules are of course there to be broken, so don't worry, this is just really getting those cogs whirring on composition. Here are the rules that I can find, and I put them in alphabetical order. Otherwise it would have been all the ones that I wanted to do, and that would have spoiled the next episode. Here's the list. Balance, centered composition, color theory, complementary elements, contrasting colors, cropping, depth of field, diagonals and triangles, don't cut off limbs, open brackets but the top of the head is fine, exclamation mark, close brackets, fill the frame, foreground interest and depth, or as I've written it, foreground internet and depth, framing, golden ratio, golden spiral, golden triangle, high or low, juxtaposition, leading lines, left to right, negative space, patterns, reduce clutter, reflections, repeat elements, rule of odds, never heard of that one, rule of thirds, scale and hierarchy, simplicity and minimalism, space to move, symmetry, finally, viewpoint. Blimey, that's quite a list, isn't it? Don't worry though, I'm not saying you have to learn to use all of them. Far from it. Obviously, rules of composition is a visual thing which is hard to describe in words, which is why I'm just telling you what they are. That's easy for me to say. So you know, so you can go and check them out yourselves and see which ones you like and which ones you don't. Yeah, it's a big list. Don't worry about it. In the next episode, I'll tell you the ones that I use and also why I use them in my mainly architectural and landscape photography. And don't let that put you off that I'm talking about architectural photography, which is what I do, because a lot of these rules and principles, guidelines, tips, tricks, techniques, call them what you want, they apply to varying degrees to pretty much any genre of photography. So why do we have rules? Well, these rules have evolved over the years. Photography's been around for a good 180 odd years. Obviously painting and art and that for much longer. And the composition applies not only to photography but to other forms of art as well. Yes, I know, photography as art, that's a scary thought because I'm not a very artistic person. They're not really rules. I hate the term rules of photography, rules of competition. Rules of competition. I failed again to say composition, so my consistency levels are excellent there. Can't say it. Composition. There you go, done it. No, they're not rules. These are just ideas, techniques, things to think about, but they are based on sound compositional principles which can help us all with our photography. They're good to be aware of. They do help you, and I give them all a go. Don't have to do them all at once. Take one, try it, see what the results are, and then try another one. Like I say, it's not rules, it's ideas, but it's also making you and I think more about our composition. That's the whole point of this episode, really. It's not about the rules, it's about thinking about composition. But if I made this episode how to think about composition, you'd all be going, it'd be so vague and woolly, there'd be nothing for you to take away. Now I've given you a list of things that you can look into and research and apply. It's giving you something actionable, which is always good. Quick top Lightroom tip. If you use Lightroom, great, this will apply to you. If not, fast forward 30 seconds. Some of these rules you can find in the crop tool in Lightroom. To get to the crop tool in Lightroom, press the key R and it takes you straight there from anywhere. And then if you press O, you can cycle through the different cropping things. It's got rules of third and golden spiral and some other stuff that I tend not to use. I use the rule of thirds one. It's the default cropping screen. It helps with my compositions. Excuse the cough there. I've been down to do that for ages and I didn't want it to distract by making me stop because I can't edit audio. So yeah, Lightroom. These rules are so significant, especially the ones that I use, that Lightroom has the facility built in for you to apply these rules. Let's recap. Composition. A good composition provides an image that is pleasing to the viewer, gives interest, and makes the viewer look at the photo and explore the content. Now, I wrote that. Yes, I was reading it out, but it's my own words. What else have I got to say about composition? Well, next episode I'm going to talk about the rules of composition that I use and how I apply them in my architectural photography. There's quite a few rules here that I don't use, and there's one that's not in there, which isn't a rule of photography, but it's called less is more. Now, less is more is a principle that I apply to pretty much everything in my photography now, having made a really ham-fisted mess of learning and doing far too much and what have you. I've simplified things down, so I'm doing less rather than more. So like I say, the next episode, what rules do I use? Going forwards, I've got a list of episode titles, and I was looking at it the other day thinking, do people really want to hear this? So I'm having a rethink about that. On the one hand, whilst I thought it was important to talk about composition, I'd like to get back to some of the fundamentals of photography. So if you're listening to this, and if you've heard me say that, you clearly are listening to this, please let me know if there's anything that you want me to explain. I'm getting quite a few listeners now. Let's just check the numbers. I've gone too quick on this one, haven't I, clearly? So I always said I wouldn't try and fill for time, but hey, we're here now, so let's just make the most of those 10 minutes together. How many downloads have I had today? 225 since I started, and I'm now on episode 13, plus the introductory one. Very pleasing. The growth is good. It would be great to hear from anyone, really. Ask a question, any question. Anyway, so next is what rules of competition... That's 4 times I've failed to say composition. I really need to work on this, don't I? You've probably gathered by now I'm not a polished, skilled broadcaster. No, just a bloke talking in the unechoey room. I hope you appreciate the improved acoustics today. Okay, so for the last time, next episode is what rules of composition do I use? There is a very important point to this because it gives you a much reduced number to look at, and I'll tell you how I apply them and use them, how they help me with not only my commercial photography work, but also my personal landscape and travel photography work. Yep, that's it for now. Thank you very much for listening. Very kind of you to spare 10 minutes of your day with me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Apologies it was a bit waffly, but if you did enjoy it, please leave a nice review and rating wherever you get your podcast from. And please subscribe so you didn't miss an episode. If you didn't enjoy it, or you thought I'd been poor, please don't leave a bad review, but just send me an email and let me know about it. sales@rickmcavoyphotography.co.uk. Talking of which, check out my website, rickmcavoyphotography.com, where you can find out all about me and my architectural and construction photography work, and also my photography blog with lots of good stuff on it. As I said before, if there's something you want me to explain, let me know and I'll add it to the list. Easy to find out how to do it from my website. This episode has been brought to you by the power of a cheese and crisp sandwich. I've been Rick McEvoy. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers from me, Rick.